Hey, this is Jon Bokenkamp. Welcome to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Happy holidays, one and all, Blacklist fandom. Welcome to the award-winning Blacklist Exposed. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I am Agent Aaron Peterson, and today we are talking to none other than the showrunner, creator, executive producer, and what other hats he might wear for that beautiful coif of hair he has, Jon Bokenkamp.
Show notes and other intel for this episode of the Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com. We are super excited that January 3rd is finally around the corner, Aaron. And this was just a nice treat that Jon was nice enough to come on and kind of talk a little bit about where we were in season 5, kind of for the first third, plus sets up what's really going to be a super exciting episode for 509 when we come back on January 3rd.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It sounds like it's going, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. Listen to the interview, then you can hear what it sounds like it's going to be. But it was great that Jon stopped by. It was like a gift from Santa. I asked for 4K TV. I got Jon Bokenkamp. What are you going to do? I hope you guys really enjoy it. I think they're going to have a good time. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and get into it, and we'll see you on the back half. Enjoy.
First question everybody's going to ask, and I'm sure you've already been asked 1,000 times, but on a scale of 1 to Jimmy Hoffa, how dead is Tom?
He's dead as Jimmy Hoffa. He is dead and gone, unfortunately. Yeah, it's that's why we put that last shot in that episode was him going into the icebox. You know, we've been accused of bringing people back to life in the past, so we thought, well, let's see a toe tag, let's see a cold dead corpse in a room at the morgue, sliding him into the fridge. So yes, he is gone.
I've had people actually argue with me and say, well, that's probably a dream sequence. I'm like, what is it going to take? I mean, do we need fingerprints, DNA? What do we need?
It's hard, it's hard. Well, you'll see as the show moves forward, especially in, like the next episode and really the engine in the back part of the season, it becomes pretty clear that the emotional sort of weight that Liz carries as a result of it is pretty indicative of the fact that he's deader than a doornail.
Well, and launching from that, as a creator, from a creator's aspect, from the guy that runs the show and keeps everything on the rails and has built a relationship with these people, even though it's across the coast. For some people that don't realize it's filmed in New York, but you're actually based in LA.
Yeah.
How was that like for you? Because, Ryan's been there from the beginning. So what is it like for you as a creator to know, hey, I need to do this to serve the story, but at the same token, this is a guy I genuinely like?
Yeah, well, look, Ryan is a fantastic actor, and he was integral to the success of the show. And, I'm sure you guys have heard us talk about before the idea that he originally died in the original pitch of the episode of the pilot that I had, he had died. And then, we decided to keep him around, and then he died a couple more times in the first season. And we enjoyed writing for him, and he's a great actor. And truthfully, the space that character occupied within the show, I think really helped. It was sort of a, there's the A case and then sort of what Red is doing, but you could always pop over to Tom doing something else, which was sort of, to me, kind of kept it alive in an interesting way that was atypical of most shows. And, it was difficult to make that decision and to decide to actually go through with it and kill him off. But we had conversations with Ryan about it before the season started. We kind of knew that we wanted to bring him back, bring them as close together as possible, and then rip him away from us. And so, we talked to Ryan about it, and it's I think it's ultimately the right thing to do for the show. I think here's an example. We killed who played the cowboy in season 1, Lance. Riddick, right?
Yes,
who played the tracker, right? Who Red, used to hunt down people. He was essentially a tracker, and we had planned before we brought him on. We kind of knew that character would probably end up dead. That Tom would end up killing him, and I didn't quite realize, wow, we have Lance. This guy's great, and after we had killed him, it's like, what do we do? Is there any way to bring him back? He was great. Maybe he wasn't really dead. Let's live with this character more, specifically because we liked the actor. And we couldn't. We decide, we saw him go into that grave with Jolene and he's dead. And only because of that were we able to say, well, we need a new tracker. Who is somebody who can find people? And we sort of found our way to Glenn. So anytime we let somebody go, whether we blow up Alan Alda or, say goodbye to Tom, it always sort of opens a window to the possibility of somebody new that we hadn't thought of or that we hadn't discovered yet. And I'm sure that's the case here. Mr. Kaplan's the same thing. It's like, such a intimate sort of person within Red's inner circle, hard to see her go. But I think the show hasn't felt tremendously different this year as a result. And in fact, we've met some new people as a result of that. So I don't know, double-edged sword. It's hard to do, but ultimately for the show, I think is the right thing to do.
So does Red harbor any ill will against Tom? Because you never really get that closure of how did Red really feel about Tom the whole time. So you left with kind of like an interpretative moment in that. So for you, do you think Red forgives him? Red's okay with him? Or do you think Red's like, no, he put my pseudo daughter, or whatever you want to call it, because some people are still not bought into it yet, into the into a coma for 10 months?
Yeah, I think he probably feels the same way he always felt about Tom. I think Tom was kryptonite. He would have killed him years ago if he could have, but Liz's love was sort of this protective bubble around Tom. And I think the minute he betrayed Red was done with him. So I as much as it was nice to kind of bring them together at the end, and for him to, as much as he could, accept Tom, I don't think Red has many regrets about it. Probably, I think he's sad that he's gone. Clearly, I don't think he wanted to go this way. He tried desperately to save Tom. But again, for Liz. So I don't know. You'd have to ask Spader that one. I'm sure he has some specific thoughts about how Red feels about Tom.
Because you shoot the flash forward, and it makes it look like Red's going to put 2 into Tom in the flash forward in the premiere. Did you guys ever toy with the fact, does Red actually shoot him? Maybe just cap him in the knee for the heck of it because he said, "Hey, I can still get to you, son."
No. I mean, we had talked about it a lot in the room, but we kind of landed on the idea that it'd be hard for Red to come back from that. If Red just maliciously murdered Tom, to protect whatever secret, it's kind of like, I don't know. It felt like it would be too much for him to come back from. So we did want to sort of indicate that even though this is sort of a lighter, more fun, Red's broke, he's clawing his way back kind of season, we wanted to remind everyone that, hey, don't worry. Yes, it's 8:00. Yes, it feels a little more frothy, but this is still the Blacklist, and it's still going to get as weird and dark as it has been in the past. So that's kind of what that was at the end of that first episode that you were talking about in season 5, was a little bit of a wink toward where we were going. I almost feel like it's a memory that space holds in a weird way, sort of a weird step forward in time to kind of peek at something horrible that's going to happen. So it was fun listening to you guys debate that. What does it mean? Where are we going? All the theories on that was kind of interesting, to see unfold.
Okay, so this is a question in regards to when you as a creator decided to kill a main character on a show, because a lot of shows have done this and they do it well. And Tom's was the most talked about, I think, in a long time, short of maybe Walking Dead's recent decisions. So when you are putting together, we know this is going to have an impact on the story because there are, and on the fandom, because a lot of fans feel one way about Tom or feel another way about, people are passionate about that character. How do you as the showrunner weigh that decision, and how do you look at a story? I mean, are you looking like seasons ahead? Do you look just for this season? How do you guys weigh that?
I don't know. That's interesting. We, I think selfishly, we sort of look at our stories and where we go and what will it do to the show. I mean, that's really the biggest thing is like, does it ultimately help us or hurt us? And we don't always know. I mean, I remember we had a lot of arguments about Alan Alda when we killed him. And, Sony, probably rightfully so, felt like, guys, you have a TV legend here. This is why are we doing this? And it just, to me, I felt strongly that we just needed to make that turn as and to have nothing be sort of sacred, and hopefully this is this sort of restates that, that yes, we've had a character, who faked her death. Kaplan, there was a reason why we saw Kaplan sort of move in the beginning of season 4 after Red shot her. We wanted to indicate to the audience, look, this isn't done. We had just played this sort of fake death with Liz. And so, I don't know, Aaron, it's really about just sort of trying to follow our instincts about what is the right thing for the show at that time. And the familial aspect of Tom and Liz and the baby, that's not really what we do very well, no one was really interested in seeing Tom become, Mr. Mom and playing that out. And we weren't really sure, we'd done a lot of different things with him going out and being a spy, but it felt like, well, what haven't we done? What's new, and we wanted to get them. We did feel like that they had come back together emotionally, that they had sort of, through all the craziness that had happened, they cared about each other, and that we knew that we always knew that that's one thing we wanted to do. We wanted to have them, that their love was ultimately sort of earned and real and grounded. And it felt like once we got there, it kind of felt like, wow, story over, and this was the next sort of turn that we knew at some point would probably come, but we weren't quite sure where it would land.
And it worked. Well,
thank you. But you don't really know until you try it and find your way through it. So, but I'm glad you thought it worked.
Yeah, because you've heard from me probably listening. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the Liz and Tom together. Like, it just seemed like ushy-gushy and it just doesn't seem like this fits and all. And I was like, I take it all back. Just bring them back together. A ball of emotion on my floor. Such a great finale.
Yeah, it came together well. The guys did a great job cutting that together, and the music worked, and the performances were right, and it felt like it was building towards something that was really really emotional, and that's why I think it's a nice engine pushing us forward, because it has real consequence.
The reason why I brought that up is anytime a major character dies or is going to die, you always get the Monday morning fandom, where you're like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's going on. And I just wanted to illustrate to listeners and fans that, you guys take into account a lot of scenarios, including fan reaction, and you got to do whatever is best for the story.
Yeah, you really do. It's, and sometimes, the audience won't like it, or it might be hard to sit with, we might do something knowing that, I don't know, in 4 episodes, it's going to motivate a big turn, or in 8 episodes, that it's going to change things. And we sit with that going, well, hang with this. You'll see where this is going. Tom came back at the beginning of the season. I'm sure some people were like, oh my God, here he is. And they're so happy, and they're, making out and making pancakes, and they're back to the same old shenanigans, but that was all to fuel, sort of, an emotional death, and, but yeah, it is tricky, and we never really know. But I've said before, I'm sure you've heard me say, we're just trying to surprise ourselves, and think what is unexpected and sort of fresh, which is hard. 5 seasons in, I'll admit it's a little bit harder than it is in season 1, where everything is a first. The first time we meet Tom, the first time we find a box under his floor, those are a little bit easier in hindsight than deeper into the life of the series and trying to keep things fresh.
Well, you had the song that plays over their time in the car there, right? The Sound of Silence. And you mentioned to us that you thought about potentially putting a different song in there. What were some of the other options that you guys came up with that you were just kind of like, yeah, no. Like, I'm just curious to see how it would have worked out.
I'm trying to think what we had there. It escapes my memory right now. We had a number of them. We had, I don't know. I'll tell you this though. I've got tons of music of my own. John Bissell is always sending stuff. I've got sort of, files on my phone that I'll just sort of listen to. Even I got into Spotify recently, or a season or two ago, and I'll just walk around and listen to songs and, Southern Cross was one of those that I heard, and I was like, well, this is sort of a weird, old, kind of campy but super emotional song. And that fight scene was written to that song I was listening to. I knew we wanted to use that, and so I've got like all these lists of songs, and I'll go through when we get to a place like this. We're on a moment like this right now with the 100th episode where there's a couple of moments that aren't working. I know the music could work better. And you sit there, you know, with the iPod, your iPhone, sort of listening through songs to the picture, and none of them really worked nearly as well as that version of Sound of Silence, which I thought was just fantastic. And we couldn't top it. I couldn't come up with something. I couldn't find anything better. I thought it was great.
So you mentioned something there that you were listening to Southern Cross and then kind of wrote to it. So do you write to songs, or do you write and then try to find a song that fits? Is it kind of 50-50? How does that work out?
It's both. That was a really odd instance. John Eisendrath always says to me, I can't hear the music. I don't even know. I can't hear any of it. You know, he sort of pleads the fifth. You know, he knows I love working with the music, and at times I think he doesn't have the patience for it when we listen to different stuff. And I think he just he's so into the story that he often lets me do that and knows that I enjoy doing it. And so he had written a lot of that first act or that last act, and had written in The Sound of Silence by Simon & Garfunkel, or just The Sound of Silence. And I secretly thought to myself, I don't know, The Sound of Silence, is that right? Like, that seems maybe a little, I don't know. I didn't know. And I thought, well, John never put songs in scripts. Let's leave it. We'll try something different later if it doesn't work. And I was expecting to hear Simon and Garfunkel. And then when I heard this other version of it that I believe the editor found, Dave Post, it really was an example of how collaborative the process is. You know, like, we had all broken an idea. We knew that the last act of this episode, we wanted to be basically one song. John had scripted something. I thought, probably not a great idea, but I left him alone about it. The editor found a different version of that song. And, ultimately, no one person sort of landed on, it wasn't what any of us expected it would be. And it was this weird thing where the sort of piece takes a life of its own, and you kind of go, wow, don't mess with it. That actually really worked.
That's excellent. Well, we've got some other listener questions. Like, we're going to intersperse with our own, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Please.
Linda Cheney kind of wants to know, and I'll just paraphrase here. There seem to be a lot of social issues interspersed in the scripts this season. Is that intentional, or just happened? Coincidence?
I'm trying to think of one. Or do you have any off the
police,
off the cuff, or
the police killer one?
The police stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably guilty of that one. There've been so many police killings, shootings and so forth that have been in the news that we thought, well, the Blacklist is really a show that is, here's the presenting crime. You think it's one thing, Red can tell you it's something else. And that felt like, wow, we rarely do touch from the headline, sort of pulled from the headlines type stories. And it felt like that was an opportunity to do one. I mean, the network and the studio were very sensitive to it. And we were clearly very aware of how, what a real issue it is. But our show isn't one where we typically take like a big political stance. We weave them in now and then. John's more, in tune with that. I think he has more of a instinct to do that. And maybe the show would be better if we did a little more of that. But, he had a little bit of a runner with Aram and Samar in their pay. She was paid less than Aram. And that was something that John went off and did, and just had sort of a instinct for that. And, those little stories, oftentimes they're very small. I don't know. They mix it up. They tell you a little bit about the characters and ultimately are hopefully, enlightened who those characters are versus feel like some kind of political stance, which maybe that would be great. Maybe we should do full on political things. But I don't think that's in the cards for us.
Well, and the Cooper episode was pretty close to that as well. When you kind of think about him trying to find, this, kid and trying to save him from the streets and things of that nature. I guess with that episode, it seemed a little bit strange the way Cooper was so by the book in the first, episode one. We're going to do this right.
I heard that.
Are you mad?
Go ahead, finish your question. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just
cut him off. Be rude. Do it.
I heard you talking about this earlier, and look, I can't deny it, because on one hand, if I recall right, he's sort of scolding Liz for play by the book, don't arc dark, Reddington's bad, or maybe it wasn't even Liz, maybe it was Wrestler, and then at the same time he's going out kicking down doors and taking the law in his own hands, suspects. Right? Well, only in self-defense, right? I mean, he went into the room, the guy, they pulled guns, and here's the bottom line. That's a story where we're always trying to figure out what's the Red story, like what is Red doing, because we have the case, the A case, and then you have the other characters and what's really going on within the mythology of the show. And that was an example where, we had an A case, which was perfectly fine. And we thought, well, what do we want to do with, what is Red doing in this episode? And we haven't teamed him and Cooper up. And we've really liked writing for Harry. And he's always behind the, the desk telling people, Wrestler and Bobby, you go check this out. I want to know if this is real, And we thought, well, God, let's get him out in the field and do something and actually see him, team up with Red and have the Red Cooper buddy story, So we might have lost sight of the emotional path of Cooper in an effort to sort of get the two of them to team up and have a buddy movie.
At the same time, it kind of worked, though, because the tagline of the season was family, period. Got to make sure everybody remembers that the period is in there. Family period, business period.
That was an NBC thing. I thought that was great.
Yeah, because you had like the story with the mom with the Goldenblood, and ended up having to kill herself in order to give her. It was the heart, right, that she had to give to the son in order for him to live.
Yeah, to save her son. Yeah, ultimately let herself die to save her child, for sure. Yeah, that was an episode that John Eisendrath's old former assistant, he's actually not old, he's quite young, former assistant, is now a staff writer on our show, Noah Schefter. And he had a great moves to a story that, again, that's a real thing, Goldenblood, and it felt like it had some good turns and a nice parallel of how far will a parent go for a child. I was extra sort of resonant.
I like how you said parent and not mother.
Let it go, Troy.
Well, she was a mother, yeah. In that case, how far a mother would go for her child, but for her son.
I was convinced that was not a real thing, and Troy proved me wrong. I was convinced. I'm like, there's no way that's a real thing. He's like, it is. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, right. Most of those things, we've got a couple coming up. There's oftentimes we drift a little bit from the full truth, but most of these, whether it's cryogenics or Goldenbloods, or we've got a story coming up in the 100th episode that's about a myth behind some treasury notes that went missing. These are things that we go out and we find, and that, usually the truth is stranger than fiction. You can't make this stuff up, really, the weirdest stuff, even the episode that we had this season where I want to say immigrants, but that's probably not right, washed up on the shore. The refugees had washed up on shore, and that was a thing that had happened. One of these boats goes down, and so oftentimes those news stories are a nice way for us to get to a kernel of an idea.
What was the deal with the elephants? I have to, who came up with that idea?
You know what? That was Jonathan Shapiro, who is a great writer, and that was a story where we were trying to figure out what the Red story was, and we wanted to, he had hired Smokey Putnam to be part of sort of his logistics guy to help come up with running his business in a way and evading the police. And at the same time, he had lost his jet, he'd lost his money. And so Jonathan came in and had a great pitch for like a 6-beat story about borrowing money to do a gun deal because the gun runners are after you, but you trick the gun runners by actually stealing their plane, but there's nowhere to steal the plane, but we got to make a runway. How are we going to make a runway? Elephants. Circus comes full circle. We heard that. We just laughed about it. And we're like, all right, that's great. Go write that. That's a good, weird, fun story. And we had elephants, right? I mean, I wish I was on set that day. They brought in elephants and it was insane. That's not most procedurals don't have a lot of elements.
We have to eat crow a little bit, John, because we were like, well, what about the stumps? And then someone actually sent us the article that said the elephant's trunk is actually good enough to pull out the stumps. And then you guys had the line in there about how the runway was so bumpy. Well, that would have been the potholes that were left over by the stumps. So So we have to eat crow on that one.
The truth on the Stumps is the elephants could come to a preserve, basically a big park in New York or somewhere near New York, but they couldn't really pull anything. They couldn't really be working. So they were kind of walking around in an empty field. So that's probably why you didn't see them pulling any stumps. It was a light work day for the elephants, I think.
Yeah, they probably worked hard on the other days.
They have good agents, I guess.
So,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, good deal.
They had good clauses in their contracts.
Right.
Are we gonna? So this first third, or almost third, or over a third of the season has really been twofold. It's been Red building himself back up while Liz got broken down. So how do you feel in terms of now that the 8 episodes are out there and you've got them out in the zeitgeist, so people know what your idea was, your vision was. How do you feel that came out? Whatever you were attempting to do with those first 8 episodes. I feel pretty good about it. I think with all of these, some work better than others, but I think the trajectory of Red going from Red being broke mm-hmm.
and Liz and Red sort of being close to this place where Tom dies and Liz doesn't really know that Red is kind of behind it. I mean, he didn't cause Tom's death, but he, certainly what Tom was trying to do was to sort of out Red and his secret and died in the process. I think that's a nice arc. I think it's funny. I look back at all these seasons and maybe not the first one so much, but our first 8 episodes always kind of feel like if we were doing cable, we'd be done for the year.
Yep.
Liz goes on the run for 8 episodes with Red, and by the end of 8, she's caught. Great. That's the end of a season in cable. And so I do like this. I feel like it was very successful. I think it was a little weird and a little different seeing, Spader playing Red, who's without the money and the suits and the hats and stuff. That was a little bit different. And it's also a little interesting sort of meeting new characters who we aren't used to meeting, that we're not used to seeing. We were sort of exploring there, but I think ultimately, we had some really good Blacklist cases, and I think it kind of worked.
I really like that side of Spader. It was almost like he remembered Boston Legal there for a little bit. He just got wacky.
Right. Yeah, right.
I love that.
He got wacky. And we have Wacky coming up, too. There's a little bit of Wacky in 511, which is our 100th episode. It's a little lighter. It's a little more fun. And it's really weird, guys. He is so good at being able to walk that. It's such a fine line, and it's a very difficult thing to write for and for people to sort of hear that voice. But somebody who can go from murdering somebody to then pivoting over and laughing about it or telling a joke or being friends with them, he's able to walk a very fine line. And I think that was one of the things that was successful about this first part of the season.
Maybe another listener question here, and I'm totally going to butcher your name, Beth. So Beth B wants to know, we had a memorial service for Nick and Liz. Are we going to get a memorial service for Tom?
In a way, yeah, we are. Not linear of a way, but yes, we will move through that process. Yes. Not a lot of eulogies, not a lot of speeches and funeral potatoes and reading the cards on the flowers, but he'll have his moment.
I don't know how much you can talk about, because I know that it's coming. I know you're not going to spoil anything, because I know you well enough to know that. But can you give us an idea of how you're going to go about filling in the 10 months gap, or how you're going to approach this coming up episode and the episodes after that, knowing that there's a 10-month gap? Are we going to fill in those gaps, or is it going to be done just with conversation, or are you actually getting flashbacks? How is that going to work? Can you say?
When we come back in 509 in our next episode on January 3rd, it is yet another leap forward in time. So we're not coming back 10 months later. We're coming back, I won't say, indeterminate amount of time. And Liz is in a different place, a different headspace, a different life almost. The episode that's to come, which I'm really excited about, Sean Hennon wrote this episode, and it's really intimate and quiet, and it's like a little indie thriller that is sort of like a little movie. It's a little bit like what we've done with Cape May or the Mr. Kaplan episode. where we depart from a case of the week and we just go sit with this character and we get to know her and see sort of where she's gone. And so I'm really excited about it. So it's a really interesting episode. And so in terms of the time of it all, part of the reason of the time jump, one of the benefits of the time jump, not a reason we did it, but one of the things that we thought was interesting about it was that we don't have to come back and sit with Liz and all of those firsts that I was talking about before over the first season, where she's crying about losing her husband, and now we're going to the funeral, and now we're going to fight with Red. Like, it could be so dark and morose and like emotionally heavy that it's a little bit of a cheat, but it felt like an organic thing that she was injured and comes out later to learn this, but it also just uproots everything. And we don't know where any of these characters have been, and we don't know what's happened. And we're sort of even closer to Liz as she's sort of trying to comprehend like what has happened in the world. And the added benefit is that, again, we don't have to sit through all kinds of horribly sad scenes where she's writing Tom's obituary. Long with the answer to your question, but that's sort of one of the reasons that was behind thinking.
Yeah, plus you get to age up Agnes, so that's always a bonus.
And we get to age up Agnes, and we do. Yeah, for sure.
She's now a toddler or a teenager, one of those. We're not sure where.
When we come back, she's getting her driver's license. She's 16, and no.
I'd watch that.
But
that sounds fun.
That would be actually, talk about a way to reboot, right? I mean, it's 16 years later. We don't quite go that far, but but we do get to age her up a little bit.
Yeah, she's at least not on a milk carton anymore, for Aaron's sake.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly. She was a little bit of a milk carton. I had not. But again, look, I guess she was a milk carton baby and she kind of went MIA. But were you really thinking,
Nope.
You know what I want is more scenes with Agnes?
Nope.
Like, I really want to see bottle feeding. Tummy time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That was one of our reasons for sort of trying to.
No, let me tell you.
Not heavily feature her.
100% think it was a great decision. So it was the right way to go.
But she did go MIA a little bit.
I'm all right with that. It's fine. We knew she was alive. They mentioned her in a couple episodes. It's fine. We got it. But it was a fun joke.
Right.
To
They have a
play
great
with.
nanny.
Yep.
Right.
It was a great, when you did write her in, though, that scene with Ryan was fantastic. I mean, just the whole, like, I'm not lying to Mom. I'm just not telling her everything.
Right. Well, again, that was John. That was a good way to try to get out exposition. Who is he talking to? Is he talking? Oh, right. He could be talking to his child. And we remember that Agnes is still there and sort of see her. But yeah, that I'm glad that worked.
Oh, yeah. Before I forget. So is Oleander still a thing? Is that still prominent or is that still relevant? Because I think only Tom heard it. So I don't know. Does that name die with Tom?
Yeah, see, this is why I'm fascinated with your podcast. Yes, Oleander is still a thing, okay. And Oleander will come back. It is a bit of a forgotten clue that was sort of parked, but we will come back to that.
Will you come back to it, like coming back to some of the fans want to know Naomi, Jennifer, any of that still lingering out there?
Yeah, that's all still lingering out there. That's not been forgotten. That is definitely part of the conversations as we push forward and look at sort of where stories could go and where these characters are. There's a big, I don't think it's really on the wall anywhere there, but there's definitely a Dave Metzger somewhere somehow knows where the list of loose ends is. And there are a number of them. You know, a lot of them are tied up. You know what, by the way, I have to mention this. 2017. Can we talk about that briefly?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Right, because that was something that I know feels like this is an interesting thing because it was something that I'd heard you guys talk about. What was the 2017 plan? Can't remember the guy's names, Hobbs and anyway, Mitchell and Hobbs. But so the 2017 plan was, as we were introducing the man who was running for president, there was a plan on behalf of the cabal, essentially, to undermine the American election with Russian money and ultimately the troll farmer, which was fake news. But it's weird in looking back at it, you know, because there's a lot of that is obviously very relevant. But
right.
now, but it was really The 2017 plan, in our thinking, was the effort on behalf of the cabal to finance the election of the man who was running for president, who eventually read blackmailed, and the plan unraveled. Now, even as I'm hearing myself saying it, I'm wishing I had Luke Ryder here to walk me through it, because I'm sure I'm screwing it up in some way. Let me do this. Let me have Luke, who is like a legal scholar, he'll write it up, and I'll send you a 2-line description of what the 2017 plan is.
Pardon the interruption here, everyone, but Luke did write in the 2017 plan, and we wanted to present it to you here as promised. And so this is the thoughts from Luke Ryder on how 2017 was supposed to go down. Back 25 years ago, the cabal was engaged in a global conspiracy to bring about the fall of the Soviet Union. The players agreed that once the Soviet Union was dismantled, the world would enter a 25-year period of instability, allowing the group to profit from the political and economic uncertainty that followed. Afterward, the world would return to a Cold War posture, with the two opposing superpowers restored. As the head of the cabal, Alan Fitch intended to stick with the plan, which called for a series of events to begin in 2017. That would begin to move the world back into the intended Cold War posture. This was the plan, timed to be about 25 years after the fall of the Soviet Union as agreed. The director, however, was unhappy with the timeline. He believed that the world had become dangerously unstable and that we needed to accelerate the 2017 plan and begin moving back to a Cold War posture immediately. The director did accelerate the plan because at his direction, the cabal began a series of triggering events intended to inflame tensions between the United States and Russia. As an example, Karakurt in Season 2, the famed Russian operative, was dispatched to the United States to carry out the Oria bombing, which killed many CIA agents. In an unexpected move, the cabal decided to blame the attack on Liz, who they claimed was a Russian sleeper agent, the daughter of Katerina Rostova, a famed Russian spy. This was at the start of Season 3. This made Liz a target and still fit nicely into their plan to inflame the U.S.-Russian relations. With the death of the director and the severe weakening of the cabal in mid-Season 3, the 2017 plan was never carried out to completion. The cabal continues to exist, though less powerful, so its members may one day muster another attempt to return the world to the Cold War posture they feel is necessary for long-term global stability. So that is the 2017 plan in a nutshell from the desk of Luke Ryder, and we will return you back to the interview with Jon.
I've heard you guys talk about that 2017 plan, and each time I go, oh God, I thought we answered that, and I thought that was clear, but we have skipped past 2017. So in the timeline of the show, although the time of the show will be present, right? It's not like we're not like living in a future reality. It's not 10 months later in the show.
Because that's one of the things people were talking about moving forward, is that it always seems like it's been like current day, and then you do the toe tag. It's kind of like that, he is dead, people, but you have the toe tag, and it's like, oh, it's 10 months later. So now we're in 2018 when the show comes back, theoretically, even though it's still pseudo present day. But from a calendar perspective, everybody was like, well, what?
Yeah, I think pseudo present day is the name of the game. I think the show coexists with the timeline that we're in. So there may be a little bit of a bump here and there, but for the most part, the jump ahead is a dramatic one and one felt by our characters, but it doesn't, the show is not taking place 2 years in the future from where we're living. That would blow my mind.
So why don't we tease a little bit about what's coming up then? So we have a few episodes here before the Olympics takes over the screens. We're coming back. Now, is the Liz episode going to be a Blacklister name? Is it going to be a no number attached to it like Cape May?
It is, yes. It's called Ruin. And it is January 3rd, and is a great episode that really largely features Megan, and she's fantastic in it. And it's super emotional and very different, and yet feels very much like the show.
But at the same time, then in that episode, we're not going to get a lot of the what happened in the last 10 months. So I'm assuming that leads us then into 510 and into 511, which is the big 100th episode, which we were all obviously on set for to see. Can we talk about who the Big Blacklister is for number 100?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We are lucky enough to have Nathan Lane be in our 100th episode, and he's fantastic. He's great, super unexpected, and to have Nathan and James playing scenes together is it's great. It's I think it's a really fun episode. Again, not as dark as our, as like when we come back in January. It takes a bit of a turn in a fun, heisty sort of way. It's I'm really excited about it. Andrew McCarthy directed the episode. I actually just saw it for the first time. I saw the full cut last I guess 2 days ago, and I'm getting another one tonight. So we're putting it together now and assembling it, and is really exciting.
How does that feel for you to have your first show hit 100 episodes? I know we'll talk more about when that happens. We've got interviews from the set and stuff, but how does that feel for you?
A little bit like a blur. I recognize that it's a big milestone, and mostly because you look back at all the people we've been working with, all the actors who've been on the show, and the crew who have had children who are now walking and talking, and marriages, that have happened. And so like a family, you sort of clock the time of it in that way. But unfortunately, we're so sort of in the weeds day to day on trying to get scripts done that there's not a lot of time to sort of, reflect on it. It was great to go to New York and to be there. And that's where it kind of hit me. You guys were there when I was, It was oddly really emotional. It's, what I had told the crew, and what I do feel is that, I had written movies for, I don't know, almost probably 15, 20 years. And each movie took like 6 years to try to get one made. And it was just torture trying to go from getting the job to getting the movie made and working on it and reworking it, or being fired or being brought back, and that whole process. And yet on the Blacklist, we're basically making a movie every 10 days. And that is really exciting to me. That still is really invigorating. And we're doing it with people who are very, very good. So more than anything, I just feel sort of stupidly lucky to be able to be doing it. But it's a big number. It's very cool.
That's very cool. And congratulations too. If I didn't say it then, I want to make sure I said it now.
You. Yeah, thank you. No, it's very exciting.
Any word on season 6? Can you say? Can you not say? You don't know?
I don't know yet. I mean, I certainly hope that it's there, and we by all means have the story for it, and I feel upbeat about it. I like the direction, and it's interesting. We've been moved on the schedule a lot. We've been moved around, and the audience really, the thing that's really comforting to us in the room is that the fans of the show like the show, and ultimately they don't really care when it's on. It may be inconvenient, but whether it's Monday at 10 or Thursday at 10 or Thursday at 9 or Wednesday at 8, we've been moved so much around the schedule that I think people have just sort of, for whatever reason, have found and stayed with the show. And that gives us great comfort. 6, we'll let the business people argue about that a little bit, but creatively, and what the engine is of where we're going, I feel really really confident. We've got the direction we're aiming for the end of the season. I think easily the best sort of cliffhanger that we've had thus far, and really sort of blows things up in a way that is really intriguing. That I'm really excited about.
Well, and to do the 100 episodes on broadcast with as much content as out there, 500 plus scripted shows that people can choose from. I mean, that's a huge feat. So now that you're settled in on this Wednesday time slot, it's hard to beat, Survivor, Empire, Goldbergs, all this stuff that's been out there, consistently for the last few years. But it's nice to see the ratings are just kind of like there, right? They're at that season 4 mark, and they haven't dipped. So kudos to the fans for coming out.
Yeah, it really is. It really is about the fans, and it's really comforting. As much as we try to not pay attention to it and not worry about the numbers. At the end of the day, if nobody's watching, we'd know, and the fan base is still there, and they have stuck with the show, and that's really gratifying.
It's enough to move artists up on the iTunes chart, because that Disturbed song climbed the charts after the finale. So.
Yeah, it went. Jon Bissell shot me an email. He said, that song that we were both questioning, it went to number 9 on iTunes the next day, which is bananas to me. So yeah, super cool. People are paying attention, which is great.
We got to let you go here in a second, but I did want to ask, in terms of the move to 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, Eastern, Did that affect anything
Yeah.
or not really? Because we thought, hey, they're going to be less bloody, but then you get the mid-season finale and it's like Game of Thrones time or something. It's bloody as hell.
Yeah, you know what? It really affected nothing. And the network was very cool about that. I asked them that and said, does this mean we need to kind of dial it back? And they're like, nope, not at all. I think all the networks are trying to compete with cable and trying to compete with being a little more edgy than what we think of as traditional network TV. And so they're open to that. And look, it's not like I had plenty of conversations with Nancy Goodman in the clearances as far as what we can show and what we can't show. When we had scripted Ian Garvey putting people into the wood chipper and, blood splattering Tom and stuff, there were definitely conversations that were had about make sure you have coverage of other things. This fight, even the fight that took place to Southern Cross, that was dialed back a little bit from what was originally scripted, even just to clear the song. We wanted to make sure it wasn't so overtly violent, but I don't feel like we didn't do anything in that episode that we wouldn't have done at 10 p.m. on a Thursday night.
This is the last question I have. Because, we're always Monday morning podcasting about your show. And I'm kind of curious, as you listen, has there been anything where you might have audibly screamed at the radio? Just like, you idiots, that's not right. You dum-dums. No, I love it. I think that's what I think is so fascinating. It's interesting to hear the sort of the viewership respond. And look, there's nobody who I think is more in tune with what the show is and where it's moving and how, kind of what it is in its DNA. You guys are very, very astute watchers in that way and know the show inside and out. And your listeners do as well. The questions, that are asked are people are paying very close attention. So it is really interesting to hear. They're really, look, here's the thing. I feel like in terms of criticism, between getting the show off the ground and the feature work I've done, I have, probably sounds like bullshit, but I have pretty thick skin, and I am more than happy to have holes poked in stories or things that don't work. And, that's part of what we do. We sit in a room all day sort of poking holes in each other's stories going, well, does this work? Does that work? How does that track? Like 2017, I go, oh my God, that feels like it's open-ended. And I thought we resolved it. Those sort of things haunt me, but no. Have I screamed at at my phone when I'm walking around the lot listening to the podcast? Not at all. No. I actually respect the the ability to disagree or go, okay, I don't like that character. I don't like that storyline. Can't move on fast enough from this or that. By all means, that makes me, I feel like you guys are being candid and raw with the show as you can be, which is good. Kind of hoping you'd slam Troy there, but that's fine.
You're looking for a dig on Troy's mom theory, right?
Yeah, anything. I'll take anything, really.
Okay.
Anything to bring that
I
head
might
down
have yelled at him once or twice. But no, I haven't.
He still hasn't publicly denied it, though, so it's still technically plausible.
I haven't denied really any theories, though. I don't think.
That's true.
You have not.
That's true. Basically, Red could Red be an otter?
Yes. We've had, is Liz a robot? Is Tom Red's son? It's been all over the map.
Yeah, I think fans would really love that one. That'd be a great turn,
wouldn't they?
Well, is Scotty coming? Is Scotty coming back? She's in jail. I mean, I'm assuming she's got to have some wrath to pay for her son's demise.
By the way, this is one of those moments I'm talking about where you guys say, well, wait a minute. What about Scotty? Was that wrapped up? Was it not? Is she in jail? I remember hearing you guys recently talking about that. We do hear from Scotty. Scotty is in the next episode, in fact, plays a really interesting and sort of important part. So we will see, albeit perhaps brief, an appearance by Scotty Hargrave. Yeah.
Fantastic.
What about Eddie Gathegi? You think he'll ever make it back? And I think he's got another show now, but
I think he's got another show or two. He's been very busy. No, we do not have anything planned for Eddie. Would we like to have him back? Does everyone on the staff and cast love the guy? 100%. He's got a great energy and sort of a different, sort of a different color in what he brings to the show in terms of like, just energy and vibe and sort of a strange enthusiasm. He's great. We don't have a plan to bring him back, but that does not mean we don't want to bring him back and won't do it.
Terry O'Quinn and James Spader are going to go head to head.
That'd be great. I think he's also working, but these schedules are hard, right? You got to get these lined up, but he would be great. I love Terry. It's a bummer that show didn't work out. I thought there was some real merit there. It was different, obviously, from the Blacklist, but that was a really fun cast. And who knows? We're open to seeing potentially any of those people come back, but we will see Scotty in the next album.
Last question. In terms of as we head out, we talked a lot about Red and Liz's character and what's coming up. Anything you tease or leave fans with about the other characters, either Cooper, Wrestler, Samar, Amir, anybody?
Well, especially Wrestler, right? Because you had you went to Tom for the B stories. So is Wrestler kind of that void now for the A stories because we still have Prescott laying around?
Well, we do have Prescott laying around. It's interesting. We kind of checkerboarded those stories early in the season where we would, have a little visit from Tom, then pivot over to Wrestler, maybe back to Tom. Yes, on all fronts, yes. I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit in time, so we will revisit the dynamic between Samar and Aram and Wrestler, Liz, obviously. Reddington's dynamic, his sort of place in the world has shifted in the time that he's been away or that we've been away from the story. And for sure, Wrestler has a really compelling story coming forward. And the whole Prescott of it all is certainly not something we've forgotten about. We're going to confront that head on. And that is a really great story for those guys. It's and that's coming up soon. So that is something to look forward to.
Awesome. Well, thanks, John. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and the room for doing such a fantastic job as always, putting these out there. It's going to be exciting when the show returns January 3rd here in the States on NBC, 8 Eastern, Pacific, 7 Central. And then, of course, the big 100th episode later in January with Nathan Lane. It's going to be exciting.
We have some really good stuff coming up, and I'm excited for you guys to see it. I can't wait to hear you dissect and mull and contemplate what it all means. But it's some fun stuff coming up.
I'm really hoping Agnes is a teenager. Seriously, if you can make that work.
Driving lessons with Glenn.
Oh my goodness!
Spinoff.
All right.
Love it.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Be well, guys. We'll see you.
Okay, guys, that was Jon Bokenkamp. What do you think? I think it was great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited for January 3rd. Now I'm even more excited that Nathan Lane is coming. That's going to be so cool. So cool.
I am super excited for the show to come back. I've missed it. I can't wait for it to come back. B, I can't wait for the 100th episode because we still can't talk about anything really until it airs. But we've got some cool interviews that we're going to share with you for that episode. So don't miss the podcast either because you're not going to want to miss that. There's some exclusive stuff in there you're not going to hear anywhere else. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it.
So if you're listening right now on YouTube or the website or any of those places, super, super easy. If you got an iPhone, just go ahead and download or even if you have an Android phone, you can download our app for the Blacklist Exposed. Just search for it in the App Store. That's the Blacklist Exposed. Or if you have Google Play or you have your Apple Podcast app, you can actually subscribe to the podcast right in those apps, and then you'll literally get the next episode before you even wake up on Friday morning when we put out the show. So it's really a great way for you to be right on the ball, especially if you're watching it, across the puddle for all of our UK fans over there. Since I can't believe that they just started airing the Blacklist in the UK, just like a week or two ago.
Don't they have Netflix?
It's not on there yet because technically in their country it hasn't officially aired. So they're just starting season 5.
Oh, so they are getting. They're probably listening to us now. They're probably just catching up.
They're just catching up. So hopefully they'll catch up enough that they can actually be in concert with us by the time we hit the 100th episode Because that would be great if worldwide everybody could get the 100th episode at the same time.
Well, it's welcome UK viewers. Hello, Governor.
And they all just left because of that.
Sorry. Is that offensive? I don't know what's offensive. I mean, can we have Meghan Markle back? Because I really like her. She's attractive.
Well, that'll conclude it for now. We will return normal schedule every time on Friday mornings after the show airs. So look for that on January 5th for the podcast, January 3rd for the show. Thanks so much for being here. Hope you enjoyed this little Christmas present for all of you out there.
Ho, ho, ho.
Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinritz. That's at Troy Heinritz on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinritz.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of the Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.